She could still feel the warm glow of the compliment. Cool Hand Albright, her very own nickname. On Saturday morning, Julie set up an obstacle course on the sidewalk with a laundry basket, an empty scrub bucket, and a family-sized box of detergent. She weaved her way in and out of the obstacles, switching hands, practicing her dribbling, then pretending to palm off the ball in a bounce pass to an imaginary player. "Hey, what are you doing?" a voice asked. Chapter 3. This Little Piggy. He's just uptight about playing the wild. Work on that defense inside the key. Albright, I've seen notes in class pass faster than your bounce pass. McDermott, what's with all the fouls? Tomorrow, you'd better be over your case of the clumsies. That's it, players. See you tomorrow. As soon as Coach Manley was out of earshot, TJ muttered, "What got into Coach today? I feel like I just ran a marathon or something." "What's wrong with my defense anyway?" complained Paul Johnson, point guard for the Jaguars. "And I had one of my best passes ever," Julie chimed in. "I think Coach Manley needs glasses." "He's just uptight about playing the Wildcats. He thinks we're not ready to take them on," said Tommy McDermott, the team captain. "At this rate, we're going to be too tired to play the Wildcats," said TJ, and everybody laughed. "I hear they have this one fifth grader who's practically 6 feet tall," said Tony Monteverdi, who played center. "They call him Dunk because he can jam balls right through the hoop." "Yeah, he thinks he's the next Kareem Abdul-Jabbar," said Brian Hannigan, the team's forward. Brian was 5'8" himself, but even he looked worried. "Great," said Julie. "I bet he's just going to love playing against a team with a girl." "Hey, don't go thinking that way," said Paul. "You're one of the best ball handlers we've got on this team. We don't call you Cool Hand Albright for nothing." "Really? You guys gave me a nickname?" "Are you kidding?" said TJ. "You can dribble rings around half this team." All the way home, Julie couldn't stop thinking about the Wildcats. Just the thought of going up against the legendary Dunk made her shiver. To chase away the goosebumps, Julie recalled Paul's words. One of the best ball handlers. She could still feel the warm glow of the compliment. Cool Hand Albright, her very own nickname. On Saturday morning, Julie set up an obstacle course on the sidewalk with a laundry basket, an empty scrub bucket, and a family-sized box of detergent. She weaved her way in and out of the obstacles, switching hands, practicing her dribbling, then pretending to palm off the ball in a bounce pass to an imaginary player. "Hey, what are you doing?" a voice asked. "Tracy." "Practicing my bounce pass. Coach Manley told me it needs work." "Well, looks pretty good to me," said Tracy cheerfully. "Want me to stand in? You can go through the course, then pass the ball off to me." "Hey, wait a minute," said Julie. "I thought you weren't talking to me. Now you're trying to help me with basketball? What's up?" "Nothing," said Tracy. "I'm over it. Besides, I can't stay mad at my little sister forever, can I?" She leaned in and gave Julie a sideways hug. "I'm not doing the dishes for you tonight, if that's what you're thinking," Julie replied. "No, of course not," said Tracy. "Come on, start dribbling, then pass the ball to me." "Well, okay. Ready?" asked Julie. For the next several minutes, Julie weaved, turned, faked, and drove the ball this way and that, bounce passing it to Tracy, who passed it right back. In the scramble, Tracy kicked over the bucket and knocked into the detergent, spilling white powder all over the sidewalk. Between bounce passes, Tracy tried to steal the ball, but Julie was too fast. "Time out," Tracy called, winded. The two girls gulped in air and sat down on a nearby front step. "By the way, Tracy said, absent-mindedly curling a strand of hair around her finger. You know how you've been dying to babysit? Yeah, but Mom says I'm still too young, Julie replied. Why? You know somebody who needs a babysitter? Sort of. Who? Julie bolted upright, excited by the possibility of her first job. When can I start? Do you think Mom will let me? How much do they pay? Well, since it's your first time, it would have to be for free. You know, to get experience. Then you work up to the big bucks. I don't know, said Julie, leaning back on her elbows. On the Brady Bunch, Marcia and Greg get their parents to pay them just to babysit their own brothers and sisters. Well, this isn't the Brady Bunch, said Tracy. Could you start later today? You mean it? For real? How old is the kid? What's the kid's name? Tracy hesitated. She glanced sideways at Julie. Charlotte? She said, making it sound like a question. It's your plant, Julie said in disbelief. You want me to babysit a dumb old plant? That's why you're being all nice and helping me with basketball and everything? Come on, Jules, you'd really be helping me out. It's super easy. You'd hardly have to do anything. Just go in my room and check on it a couple times while I'm gone. If the soil feels dry, give it a little water. And if you notice anything different or unusual, just write it down so that I can record it in my science journal. I can't. Ivy's coming for a sleepover, and I might forget. Besides, what's so important that you can't do it yourself? You're probably just hanging out with your friends at the doggy diner. Not this time, said Tracy. She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. See, I'm going to my friend Jill's house with a bunch of people, and her brother has a VW bug. Have you ever heard of Volkswagen stuffing? We're gonna see how many kids we can pile into one little VW bug. It's like playing Twister times 10. That sounds weird, said Julie. It's gonna be crazy fun, said Tracy. And Jill invited me to spend the night at her house. I really want to go, but I'll get points marked off if I skip 2 whole days in my journal. I never heard of such a dopey idea, babysitting a plant. Sure, it's called plant sitting. You can make a lot of money, taking care of people's houseplants when they go away. Really? Plant sitting, huh? Okay, I'll do it. But it'll cost you $2. $2? Are you nuts? For maybe watering it once and making sure it doesn't croak? Take it or leave it, said Julie, crossing her arms to show that her mind was made up. $1, said Tracy. Deal, said Julie. The eensy-weensy spider went up the water spout, Julie sang to the plant on her bedroom windowsill. Ivy joined in, adding all the hand motions that went with the song. Tell me again why we're singing to a plant? Ivy asked. It's for Tracy's science project. She asked me to watch her plant this weekend, but I was afraid I'd forget, so I just brought it in here. There's more sunlight in my room anyway, said Julie. And I read in a magazine that if you sing to plants or play music around them, they grow faster. Really? That sounds wacky, said Ivy. I know, Julie admitted. But wouldn't it be great if Tracy came back and her plant had grown a whole inch? She'd get extra credit for sure. Let's sing it again. Okay, one last time, Ivy agreed. Then let's go do something outside. I know. This time I'll take singing, said Julie. Then I can just play the tape for Charlotte. When the girls were finished singing, Julie pressed the play button and then picked up her basketball. Want to go shoot some hoops? Sure, said Ivy. Let me get my shoes on. Think fast, Julie said, tossing a pass to Ivy. But Ivy had bent down to pull on her boots. The ball hit the dresser, rattling Julie's gumball machine, then zinged off the corner, heading right for the open window. No! Julie dove across the bed, lunging to save the ball from going out the window. The basketball thumped against the windowsill, then bounced into Julie's hands. Phew! Got it! Ivy stared at the window in horror. Crash! What was that? Julie followed Ivy's gaze to the open window, an empty windowsill. For a split second, Julie's mouth gaped open in shock. Then Julie and Ivy rushed over to the window and peered down at the sidewalk below. Charlotte lay in a jumbled heap on the ground. Dirt was scattered all over the sidewalk. The clay hippo was smashed to pieces. In a blur, Julie and Ivy raced down the back steps and out onto the sidewalk. "Oh no," said Julie, covering her face in disbelief. "What are we going to do?" She picked up the spider plant, turning it in her hand. Many of the long, blade-like leaves were crushed and broken, and the roots looked pale and limp. "Maybe the roots are still okay," Ivy said hopefully. "And we can clean up all this dirt. It's probably still perfectly good dirt. But the pot, we've got to put it back together." Ivy shook her head. "There are too many pieces. We'll never be able to glue it." "Then we'll have to find another pot just like it," said Julie, picking up the pieces. "Does your mom have more pots like this at her shop?" Ivy asked. "No, that's the problem. This one was just a sample," Julie explained. "I've seen them at the 5 and 10 shop in Chinatown," said Ivy. "My mom has one that's a frog." "Hey, there's a 5 and 10 shop right down on Haight Street," said Julie, brushing the last of the dirt off the sidewalk. "Let me use your bag to carry Charlotte in. I'll tell my mom we're going. Come on." On Haight Street, the girls rushed past the bead shop, the record store, and the art supply store. At the antique store, Ivy paused to admire a silk kimono on a mannequin in the window, while Julie picked at Charlotte, who lay in a soft bag that was made from an old pair of blue jeans. Charlotte looked a bit crushed. "Mom's told me 1,000,000 times not to throw the basketball in the house. Now I know why," Julie murmured. "Come on, we better hurry." At the 5 and 10 shop, Ivy followed Julie past a pyramid of Charlie perfume and down an aisle filled with Halloween candy. "There's a plant section," Julie said, motioning to Ivy. They walked past rows of African violets and begonias, looking for the pots. "Over there," said Ivy. "I see one that's a turtle." They scattered for a planter in the shape of a hippo, like Tracy's. "They have bunnies and puppies, cows and kittens," said Julie. "There just has to be a hippo." She began lifting out all the pots stacked behind the front row and setting them on the floor. "May I help you?" asked a tall woman, wearing a blue smock with a name tag that said, Glenda. She peered at them over glasses attached to a chain around her neck. "Sorry," said Julie. "We'll put all these back. We're just looking for a hippo." "It's an emergency," Ivy explained. "The puppies are very cute," said Glenda. "They're our most popular item." Both girls shook their heads. "It has to be a hippo." "I don't think we've ever carried a hippo, but we might be able to order one," Glenda offered. "You don't understand," said Julie. "This is my sister's plant for a school project. She had it in a hippo planter, and I broke it." "Oh, I think I'm getting the picture. Tell you what, we have a few piggies left over here," Glenda said, lifting one down from a high-up shelf. "Don't you think it looks a bit like a hippo?" Julie looked at Ivy. Ivy shrugged. "It's pretty close," she told her friend. "We could even call it Wilbur, like the pig in Charlotte's Web. But not to Tracy, of course," said Julie. She turned to Glenda. "Okay, we'll take it." "Would you like me to pot it up for you?" Glenda asked, glancing at the limp plant in Julie's hand. "I can trim off some of those broken leaves." "Really? That'd be great. Does it cost extra?" "Not for emergencies." Glenda winked at Julie. "I'll have to take it in the back. Why don't you girls look around and come back in 15 minutes?" While they waited, Julie and Ivy wandered over to the pet section. They tried to get the parakeets to talk, watched two hamsters run a race on their wheels, and gazed at the hermit crabs, hoping to catch one changing shells. At the turtle tank, they made up names for some of the baby turtles, like Slowpoke and Cutie Pie. One turtle had gotten stuck on its back, so the girls reached in and helped it to flip over. "Julie and Ivy to the rescue," said Ivy. "It's probably been 15 minutes, said Julie. "Let's go see if Wilbur and Charlotte are ready." At the counter, Glenda handed them the spider plant. "Well, I can't say it's good as new, but it should pull through. Be sure to give it a good drink when you get home." "Thanks a million," said Julie as she paid for the pot. "It looks better already." "And the leaves cover up the pot, so you can't really tell it's not a hippo," said Ivy. "Be careful now," said Glenda, waving. "You don't want to make any more trips to the plant hospital today." The girls smiled and waved goodbye as they headed out the door. "Time for this little piggy to go home," said Julie. The next afternoon, Julie and Ivy sat with their legs folded under them at the kitchen table, riveted to the tick-tick-ticking of the cat's tail on the Kit Kat clock hanging above the stove. "Quit looking at the clock, you're making me nervous," said Julie, turning back to their game of Chinese checkers. "The way the cat's eyeballs move back and forth, I feel like he's staring at me," said Ivy, jumping a marble twice. "Do you think Tracy's going to know something happened to her plant?" "I hope not, because if that plant dies, she might flunk her assignment." "Uh-oh," said Ivy. "Speaking of assignments, one good thing about all this is I have a new idea for my report. Best thing ever, my first paid plant sitting job. Worst thing ever, knocking Charlotte out the window." Julie moved a marble into her home triangle. "Remember when Tracy gets here, just act natural." "Don't worry," said Ivy. "She'll be so busy thinking about Dreamboat Matt, she probably won't even notice." 5 minutes later, the front door opened, and Tracy called out, "Hey, everybody, I'm back." "Good. Sounds like she's in a good mood," Julie whispered to Ivy. "Anybody home?" Tracy called. "We're in the kitchen," Julie called back. She swallowed hard and stared at the marbles on the board as her sister entered the room. "Hi, Ivy," said Tracy. "So, did you and your friends break any world records?" asked Julie. "You know, for the number of people in a Volkswagen?" "I think we broke the record for the number of squished people," said Tracy. "So, anything happening around here?" "No." Julie glanced nervously at Ivy, who was rolling a marble between her fingers. "What makes you say that?" "Nothing. I was just asking," said Tracy. She picked up her backpack. "Well, I'm gonna go change." "She didn't even ask about Charlotte," Julie whispered when Tracy had left the room. Suddenly, they heard a shriek. Tracy's door flew open, and she yelled down the hall, "Julie, what in the world did you do?" Julie hurried to Tracy's room, with Ivy right behind her. "What do you mean? What's wrong?" she asked. Tracy pointed at the spider plant on her desk. "My plant looks smaller, like it shrunk, and the tips of the leaves are turning brown. Are you sure you watered it like I said?" Tracy asked. "Positive. We held it under the faucet for like 5 minutes, didn't we, Ivy?" Ivy bit her lip and nodded. "Yeah, and we put it in Julie's window so it would get more sunlight. We sang to it, too." "Great, you probably overwatered it. Plants can drown, you know, and it's not supposed to be in direct sunlight. No wonder the tips are brown." "Maybe some music will help," said Julie. "We made Charlotte a tape. Want us to play it?" "Never mind," said Tracy with a heavy sigh. "I'll just have to put these observations in my journal." Julie and Ivy wandered back to the kitchen table and gazed at the Chinese checkers board. "I think it's your move," said Julie.
but the game no longer seemed fun. "Hey, she didn't even notice Wilbur," said Ivy. "Yeah," said Julie. "That's good, at least." Chapter 4. The Big Game. 3 more days. 2 more days. 1 more day. Julie deliberately marked a red crayon X through each day leading up to the big with the Wildcats, the Thursday that had been circled on her calendar for the last week. All of a sudden, Julie came up with a new idea for her report. Best thing ever. The big game was finally here. Worst thing ever. The game was really and truly here. Aye! She looked in the mirror and took a deep breath, willing herself steady. Uniform? Check. Sneakers? Check. Tube socks? Check. Sweatband? Check. Julie stuffed the items she'd need into her gym bag, double and triple checking to make sure she had everything. "All ready?" asked Mom, poking her head into Julie's room. "I made French toast this morning. Thought you could use a real breakfast for your big day. And I put some granola bars in your lunch in case you need some quick energy after school before the game." "Thanks, Mom." Julie's voice came out in a tiny squeak. "Nervous?" asked Mom. "A little," said Julie. "Excited, too. I just wish you could be there." "I know, honey. I'm disappointed, too. Of all the days for the bank to schedule a big meeting to talk about my business loan. But Dad'll be there. I'm sure he'll take some pictures, and you can tell me all about it, play by play." Mom drove Julie to school that morning and gave her an extra special squeeze before Julie got out of the car. "Remember, take a deep breath and just do your best. That's all anybody can ask." "See you later, Hoopster," said Tracy, sliding out of the front bench seat so Julie could climb out. "Go easy on those boys now. Don't make those Wildcats look too bad," Julie giggled. "I'll try to be there by the second half, if tennis practice is over," Tracy told her. "Bye," Julie waved. 1, 2, 3, go Jaguars! Julie, TJ, and the other players broke from the huddle, and the big game was on. The opening jump ball went to the Wildcats, and it was all the Jaguars could do to keep up. Elbows were flying and feet racing, and the crowd was already up out of their seats, cheering as the ball moved up and down the court. "Defense! Defense!" Coach Manley yelled to his players. Julie double-teamed with TJ to try to block the tall kid, Wildcat number 16, also known as Dunk. "Hey, 22, forget your cheerleading pom-poms?" Dunk snickered, as he stole the ball out from under Julie. Then he elbowed right past her, shoving her out of the way. It was the third time he had fouled her, but the ref had only called a foul once. "Hey, no fair!" Julie called. "That's a foul, Frady Cats!" TJ shouted. Julie knew her dad worried about rough playing, and he would not be happy about it. She tried to spot him in the stands, but the game was moving fast, and she couldn't find him. Julie ran down court. With a minute left in the first half, the Jaguars were down by 6 points, but they had the ball. "Hey, ballerina," called number 16. "Where's your tutu?" Julie gritted her teeth. She had to concentrate, focus, do everything Coach Manley had taught them in practice to block out distractions and drive the ball so that her team could score. Then Dunk was on her again, so she quickly passed the ball to TJ. He was instantly surrounded and had to pass the ball back. Just as the ball reached Julie's hands, Dunk lunged, grasping for the ball and knocking Julie flat on the floor. The shrill sound of the ref's whistle stopped the game. Julie curled up on the court, holding her hand close to her chest in pain. Next thing she knew, she was being helped off the court, and Tracy was at her side. "Where's Dad?" Julie asked in a shaky voice. "You mean he's not here?" Tracy said. "I just got here myself. Are you okay?" "Let's have a look at that hand," said Coach Manley. He was already calling for ice and a first aid kit. It's my finger. It bent back under me when I was pushed down. I can't move it.
Yeah, you have some swelling, all right. We'll ice it, and we need to get you to the emergency room and have it looked at,
said Coach Manley.
Better get an x-ray to be on the safe side.
Leave the game? Please, no. If she left the game now, people would really think that girls shouldn't play basketball. Coach, can't we tape it up or something so that I can stay in? Can I at least make my foul shot?
No. I hope it's just a sprain, but I'm not taking any chances, said Coach Manley. Is your mom or dad here?
Just my sister, said Julie. Our dad's supposed to be here, said Tracy, but I don't see him anywhere. TJ was standing right next to Julie. My mom's here. He could take you, he offered, running over to the bleachers to alert his mother. He helped Julie out through the gym door, and the sounds of the clapping, cheering crowd began to fade as they walked down the empty hall and out the front doors of the school. Clapping injured finger to her chest, Julie couldn't help thinking that leaving the game hurt almost pulsing of her swollen finger. Julie sat tense and rigid in a straight-back chair in the hospital waiting room. Holding ice to her purple, swollen finger, she fought back the tears. Are you okay, honey? TJ's mother asked, putting her hand on Julie's shoulder. Can I get you anything? Just my mom and dad, Julie sniffed, trying to put on a good face. So much for Cool Hand Albright. How could her hand have let her down like this? Tracy's calling them now, and by the time you get done with the doctor, I'm sure they'll be here, said TJ's mother. You don't understand, said Julie. My mom and dad don't live together anymore. They're divorced. My dad was supposed to be at the game, and I don't know what happened. Tracy already called Mom twice and can't reach her either. Well, I'll stay with you girls until we reach one of your parents. Don't you worry about that. Right now, we just need to get you into the doctor and feeling better. Just then, Tracy came back from using the payphone. Any luck? TJ's mother asked Tracy. Still no answer. Mom had to go to a meeting at the bank today. She must not be back yet, and I don't know which bank it is. My dad has a new answering machine, so I left him a message on it. I guess I'll just keep trying.
Julie Albright?
Called a nurse, looking down at her clipboard.
Julie Albright.
Julie and Tracy spent nearly an hour behind a curtain at the emergency room while the doctor took x-rays of Julie's finger. Then he listened to her heart, looked into her ears, and shone a bright beam of light in her eyes. By the time she emerged, her arm was resting safely in a sling, and her broken finger was splinted and taped to its neighbor so that she couldn't bend it or move it. Julie and Tracy both looked up and down the waiting area, trying to spot TJ's mom.
There she is,
a familiar voice exclaimed. Dad! Julie looked up. Rushing down the hall toward her were Mom and Dad, together. They hurried over to Julie, enfolding her in one big hug. All the tears that she'd been holding back came out in a flood of relief. Honey, we just heard. Are you okay? Mom asked, dabbing tears from Julie's face with the corner of her scarf. Does it hurt? You girls must have been so scared, she said, looking up at Tracy. Thank you so much, she added, turning to TJ's mother.
We got here as fast as we could,
said Dad, kneeling down to take a closer look at Julie's finger and splint.
What happened? Is anything broken?
We were at Julie's basketball game, said Tracy. This big kid from the other team kept pushing Julie. He wouldn't leave her alone. And they weren't even calling it a foul, added Julie, finding words coming back to her. The next thing I knew, he knocked into me, and I fell and landed on my finger. It bent way back the wrong way and hurt really bad, and she broke her finger, Tracy interrupted, looking back and forth from Mom to Dad. Except the doctor kept calling it a phalange, said Julie. Now I'm like a robot, she added, holding up her splinted finger to show off all the metal and gauze around it. "We'll take care of your finger and it'll heal soon," Mom reassured her. "I'm just so sorry this happened." "We're very proud of both of you girls," said Dad. "Tracy, honey, I know this was a lot for you to handle." "Where were you, Dad?" Tracy snapped. "Weren't you supposed to be there? What if I hadn't made it to the game after tennis?" Tracy's voice was shaking. "Tracy," Mom said gently, "your father had a weather delay out of Chicago, and there was nothing he could do. These things happen, and it's nobody's fault. We're all just relieved that Julie's okay." "I tried to call you a bunch of times," Tracy accused Mom. "I know," said Mom. "It's a good thing Dad got that answering machine. He got your message and called me right away, and we came here just as soon as we could. You did the right thing, honey. I know how scary it is when you're worried like that." Mom pulled Tracy closer, stroking her hair. "You came with Dad? Together? In the same car?" Julie asked. "Yes, honey, we did. Dad picked me up on the way." Mom smiled, and Tracy seemed to relax a bit. A nurse came over and she splint one final time, marking something on her clipboard. "Looks like you're good to go," she announced. "Anybody hungry?" asked Dad, taking a deep breath and rubbing his hands together. "What do you say we head out and stop for pizza?" "You mean it?" Julie asked. "Can I, Mom?" "I mean us," Dad said. "It's been a rough day for everybody, and I think we could all use a break. What do you say?" "I don't mind not cooking tonight," said Mom. "And I can't do the dishes anyway," said Julie, pointing to her sling. Julie looked over at Tracy, afraid she would refuse Dad's invitation. Say yes," Julie pleaded silently. "I guess," said Tracy. "But only if we go to our old place in North Beach, so I can order the very, very veggie pizza." "Now, Tracy," Mom started. "It's okay," said Dad. "I don't mind driving us over there, then dropping you all back at your place. We can get 2 pizzas, so you can each choose your favorite. How about that?" "Wow," said Julie, looking from Mom to Dad. "I should break my finger more often." Chapter 5. The Best Thing Ever. It felt funny to be home resting on the couch on a school day, playing kerplunk with Mom all morning. Mom had told Julie she could stay home for a day, since it was Friday, and the doctor had recommended taking it easy for a few days. With her uninjured left hand, Julie gingerly extracted a red stick from the marble-filled tower without upsetting a single marble. "Your turn, Mom," she said. "Bet you go, kerplunk." Mom smiled. "Honey, do you think we could finish the game later? I need to open the shop for at least a few hours today." "You're not just saying that because you're about to get clobbered, are you, Mom?" Julie teased. "Boy, nothing gets past you," said Mom. "Now, will you be all right by yourself for a little while? I'm right downstairs if you need me. Come on down if you feel up to it." "I should probably stay and work on my report. It's due on Monday. I have most of it on tape, but I haven't started writing it down yet." "Hey, wait a minute. How am I going to write?" Julie asked, holding up her splinted finger. With all the adhesive tape wrapped around it, Julie thought it looked mummified. That is going to be a problem," said Mom. "Do you want me to write a note to Ms. Hunter and ask if you can turn it in late?" "I have a better idea," beamed Julie, jumping up off the sofa. "What if I could turn in my report on tape? I have a lot of it done that way, and I could finish it up without having to write anything." "Sounds like a creative solution to me," said Mom. "And that way you won't fall behind. I'll call Ms. Hunter and talk to her about it Monday morning." "Thanks, Mom," Julie said. Julie spent the rest of the morning editing her project, erasing certain parts of the tape, Tracy's telephone call about Matt, and adding in a few peppy introductions. Coming up next, the exciting adventures of my dad, daredevil pilot Daniel Albright, when he was my same age. Hold on to your seats. Scanning down the list of topics for her project, Julie's finger stopped at the best thing that ever happened. She had planned to tell about the petition and getting onto the boys' basketball team. Momentarily, she was warmed by the memory of last night, being together as a family again, all four of them, the way it used to be, as if nothing had ever changed. Being a family again last night was possibly the best thing that ever happened. But if she were to include that in her report, it meant she would have to mention the worst thing. When it came to the worst thing that ever happened, it seemed even harder to say the word divorce out loud onto a tape than to write it down. Julie turned on the tape recorder and pushed the record button. She held the microphone up to her face, but no words came. The worst thing that ever happened to me, Julie finally stammered, was when... She couldn't finish her sentence. Giving up, she pressed the stop button. Great, thought Julie. Now I have to turn in a tape with nothing but air at the end. Feeling discouraged, Julie stared at her broken finger. Hey, wait a minute. Breaking a finger was a bad thing that had happened to her. Not finishing the biggest basketball game of the season was a bad thing that had happened. Julie didn't even have to say a word about the divorce. Her broken finger could be the worst thing that ever happened. Julie turned the tape player back on, pushed the record button, and held up the microphone. In a strong voice like a radio announcer, she told the whole story of the time she collected 150 signatures on a petition, convinced the principal and school board to let her play on the boys' basketball team. Then, for the worst thing ever, she recounted the game against the Wildcats, complete with her trip to the hospital and her freakish Frankenstein of a finger. Just as Julie was finishing her tape, Tracy came home from school. She plopped down on the sofa with her tennis racket. How's school today? Julie started. You sound like Mom, said Tracy. No, I mean, didn't you have to turn in your science journal today? Julie asked nervously. Yep. And guess what? I got an A, even though my plant died. Julie let out a small breath and sank back into the sofa with relief. Tracy, she said tentatively, there's something I have to tell you. Tracy set down her tennis racket. What is it? You know that time I watched your plant for you? Said Julie. Well, I knocked it out the window by mistake. It was an accident, honest. I was afraid you'd be mad at me and flunk your assignment, so I got a new planter and tried to fix it. I know, said Tracy. You mean you knew all this time? Tracy cocked her head. I figured you broke the pot. Did you really think I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a hippo and a pig? I guess not, said Julie in a small voice. Why didn't you just tell me what happened, instead of going to all that trouble to cover it up? Julie squirmed and looked down. I'm sorry, she said finally. Really, I am. I was going to tell you before you had to turn in your report, but when you were so mad at Dad yesterday for not being at the game and letting you down, I lost my nerve. For a few moments, Tracy was quiet, and Julie was afraid her sister was angry. But when Tracy spoke, she just sounded sad. I know I shouldn't have blown up at Dad. It wasn't his fault he wasn't at the game. But sometimes it's hard not to feel as if, well, as if he's let us down in a really big way. By leaving the family, I mean. By getting divorced. Tracy's voice quivered suddenly, and she turned away. But they both got divorced, Julie pointed out. It wasn't just Dad. It was Mom, too. It's not fair to blame the whole thing on Dad. Tracy was silent. When she turned back to Julie, her eyes were bright, and she blinked a few times to clear them. You know it's important to tell the truth, Jules. She reached over and tweaked her sister's ponytail. Besides, We're sisters, and sisters have to stick together. Promise me next time you'll come talk to me and tell me." "Promise," said Julie. She hesitated a moment, then leaned forward and gave Tracy a hug. On Monday morning, Julie was fumbling and trying to open her locker left-handed when TJ saw her and called, "Hey, it's Cool Hand Albright. You're back. Let's see the big cast. My mom says you've got metal," whatever that means. Julie held up her splint for TJ to see. "Oh, I've got metal, all right. Broke my finger. It's not really a cast, just a splint. I'm like the bionic woman now." "Aw, man," said TJ. "I can't believe Dunk ran you over." "And I can't believe I had to miss the biggest game all season," said Julie. "Thanks for calling to tell me how the rest of the game went. I'm so bummed out we didn't win. But we came super close. Coach said we played our best game ever. We probably would have won if they hadn't injured our star player," TJ teased. "Thanks," said Julie with a smile. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her tape recorder with her left hand, slashed, and headed for Ms. Hunter's class, hurrying down the hall side by side with TJ. Everybody buzzed around Julie, talking about the big game and Julie's broken finger. Like the telephone game, the story had grown with each telling. One student had heard that Julie was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. Another had heard that her finger got gangrene and had to be cut off. Julie had not been this popular since the day her mother had visited her class for career day and had given everybody free bracelets and mood rings. Ms. Hunter clapped her hands, and the students returned to their seats to listen to one another's reports. Angela went first. For the worst thing that ever happened, she told about the time she jumped into the pool and her bathing suit bottom came off. The whole class burst out laughing, and Ms. Hunter had to blink the lights just to get everybody to settle down. TJ went next. He called his report "Cheaper by the Half Dozen" and told all about living with 5 sisters. Julie couldn't imagine having 5 sisters. One was plenty. TJ described how his mom gave all the kids haircuts to save money. For the girls, she just trimmed a few inches off the ends. But for TJ, she put a bowl on top of his head and cut off all the hair below it. TJ showed a picture of himself in 2nd grade, looking like Moe from the Three Stooges. "Now who's brave?" Julie whispered when TJ sat down. "That took super-duper courage to show everybody that picture." Finally, it was Julie's turn. Carrying her tape recorder, she walked to the front of the class. "As everybody knows, I broke my finger on my right hand, so I couldn't write out my report in handwriting," she started to explain. "Aw, let's have a pity party," one of the students remarked. "Hey, my finger hurts too," somebody else called out. Julie laughed. "For real, I had to record my report on tape, so I'm going to play it for you now." The class listened intently to the stories of Dad's big bike ride, Mom's runaway horse, Charlotte the spider plant, and the best thing ever, the petition and playing basketball for the Jaguars. Finally, Julie's voice on the tape said, "And last but not least, I'm going to tell you about the worst thing that ever happened." Click. Julie turned off the tape recorder. "Hey, no fair," said a boy in the back row. "You have to let us hear the worst thing. That's the best part." Julie looked hesitantly at her teacher. She could feel her palms beginning to sweat, yet her throat felt dry as chalk dust. "Miss Hunter," she said, trying to swallow, "would it be okay if I just tell the last part aloud? I mean, without the tape? I sort of changed my mind about what I want to say." "I don't see that as a problem," said Ms. Hunter. Julie straightened up her slumped shoulders and began. "I was going to play back the story of my broken finger for the worst thing that ever happened to me," she explained. "But really, that wouldn't be telling the truth, Because even worse than a broken finger is when my family broke apart. A few months ago, my mom and dad decided to get a divorce. That means I don't get to live with both of my parents anymore. Julie's stomach turned somersaults. She wanted to leave to go get a drink of water, but she forced her feet to stand steady. When I broke my finger, she continued, my mom and dad both came to the hospital. And after I got bandaged up, we all went out for pizza together. I was so happy to have us all back together again that it was almost worth breaking my finger, except that it only lasted for one night. We weren't together again for real, permanently. Julie paused, thinking what to say next. This time the class was dead quiet, waiting for her to continue. Julie knew she had covered all the topics for her report, but she realized there was still something she was trying to say. Just now, as I was playing back the tape, I remembered something my dad told me when he broke his foot. He said that a broken bone heals back together even stronger than before it was broken. Julie's stomach was feeling less queasy, and her voice was stronger now, more confident. I think families are kind of like bones. They can break too, but in some ways, it makes you even stronger. And when one person's in trouble or gets hurt, families pull together, and you can still count on them to be there for you. The end. That's the story of my life. So far. Everybody clapped. Julie walked down the aisle, back to her seat, at the initial carved desk she'd come to think of as her own. Her heart still pounding, she slid into her chair, aware of the pulsing. She knew in her heart that the break in her family would always be there. But the love she felt for her sister and her parents, and the love they felt for her, was as strong as ever. That part couldn't be broken.
And now, Happy New Year, Julie. Julie splits her Christmas vacation between Mom and Dad, but her whole family's invited to a Chinese New Year party. Can they still celebrate together?
Chapter 1. Changes for Christmas. Julie stepped inside a forest of evergreen. The spicy scent of pine tickled her nose. The hum of traffic, honking of horns, and barking of dogs faded as a hush fell over her. Closing her eyes, Julie imagined standing in the middle of a pine forest, the Christmas tree farm up north near her grandparents' house.
Too small, too crooked, too scraggly, they'd say, searching for the perfect tree.
And Grandma would bring hot chocolate in a thermos.
Julie, over here.
A man's voice called her back to the present, the Christmas tree lot on the corner of San Francisco's Ashbury and Waller Streets.
Hey, are you my first customers?
It was Hank, a friend from the neighborhood.
I wish, said Julie's older sister, Tracy. We were on our way to the bakery when Julie gave all her money to the Salvation Army.
Just what was in my change purse, said Julie. I didn't have enough for a Christmas tree anyway.
Mom and Dad used to take us up to Santa Rosa every year to a Christmas tree farm near our Grandma and Grandpa's, Tracy explained.
And you cut down your own tree, Julie gushed. And there's a train you can ride, and you get free apple crisp, and...
But not this year, said Tracy, kicking at a stone with her boot. Mom says money's tight and she has to work around the clock.
And since we're spending Christmas at Dad's,
she says we don't need a tree this year, Julie added glumly.
A few months ago, Mom and Dad had divorced, and Julie and Tracy now split their time between the apartment and their old house, where Dad lived.
How would you girls like to adopt a tree for Christmas?
Hank disappeared behind a row of trees. He came out pulling a red wagon that held a perfectly plump tree in a redwood planter, with feathery branches like arms reaching to the sky.
I bought a live tree to plant outside the Veterans Center. We could really use some sprucing up over there, Hank said with a wink. You're welcome to take the tree home until I have time to plant it. It'll last indoors for a week or two.
Really? You mean it? Julie asked.
Scout's honor, said Hank, holding up 3 fingers. It's ready to go. All you have to do is water it.
It's perfect, said Tracy. Thanks, Hank, said Julie. The 2 sisters stepped back to admire the tree that now filled the 2nd-story bay window at the front of the apartment.
Come on, said Tracy. Let's get out the decorations. We can have this tree sparkling before Mom gets done at the shop.
It was Mom's first Christmas season at Glad Rags, the store she owned downstairs on the 1st floor of their apartment building, and the holiday shoppers were keeping her busy. I don't know where Mom put all the Christmas stuff after the move, said Julie. Do you? Tracy shook her head. I'll go down and ask her. No, wait, then she'll know.
Know what?
Asked Mom, coming up the stairs. Aw, said Julie. We got a tree from Hank, and we were going to surprise you and decorate it so that you wouldn't have to go to any trouble.
But we couldn't find the ornaments, Tracy added.
Tell you what, said Mom. Let's all decorate the tree tonight, after I close up. It'll be fun. But right now, I'm really swamped with customers. Can you 2 give me a hand?
Sure, I can run the cash register, said Tracy.
And I could gift wrap, said Julie.
Fantastic, said Mom. With your help, I won't have to turn into a Grinch after all.
What a day, said Mom, as Tracy finally flipped the sign on the front door to closed.
I still have to count the money. Why don't you girls go on upstairs and think about what to have for supper?
Grilled cheese, said Julie.
And tomato soup, said Tracy.
We'll make it, Mom. Then we decorate, said Julie. As soon as the supper dishes were cleared, Julie asked again about the ornaments. Mom frowned and thought for a moment, then looked up sheepishly.
I just remembered. When we moved, I knew we had a lot less storage space here, so I left the Christmas stuff at Dad's.
What are we going to do? Asked Julie. We have this beautiful tree and no ornaments. She lightly touched the tip of one of the branches. Hey, wait! I know. We can make our own ornaments.
But we don't even have lights or tinsel or anything, said Tracy. We can string popcorn, Mom suggested.
I guess, Tracy said skeptically.
But what about Grandma's old-fashioned teapot ornament? And the hummingbird with the fancy wings? It doesn't seem like Christmas without those.
Yeah, and don't forget the green glass pickle you hide every year, Mom, said Julie.
I like your idea of making ornaments, Mom said.
Well, I could fold some origami paper cranes, said Julie. We learned how in school.
Mom smiled and nodded. Tracy, what about those God's eyes you made out of yarn and chopsticks? They'd brighten up any tree.
Mom, I made those in Girl Scouts 100 million years ago, Tracy grumbled. But they're really neat, said Julie. Let's get them. She darted from room to room, collecting things to hang on the tree. A string of bells, a pincushion heart, Tracy's colorful God's eyes.
Tracy, why don't you get the popcorn popping on the stove, and I'll put on some Christmas music, Mom said.
All the records are at Dad's, too, said Tracy.
Then how about your transistor radio? Mom suggested. I'm sure we can find a station that plays Christmas music. Soon Mom was humming Deck the Halls, and even Tracy got into the spirit, stringing the popcorn. Julie folded origami cranes, and Tracy attached thread for hanging. Then Julie and Mom got busy with construction paper and scissors, making a paper chain that snaked across the coffee table, over the beanbag chair, and out into the hall. Mom even showed them how to melt crayons and wax paper with the iron to make ornaments that looked like stained glass. Finally, Mom let out a yawn and ran fingers through her hair. We don't have to finish it all tonight, you know, she said.
Are you kidding? Said Julie. This is better than Santa's workshop.
Mom smiled. Well, it's past 11. I think Santa's workshop is closed for the evening. On Christmas Eve, while Mom